Hi there, welcome back to my channel, Emame's Masterpiece. My name is Emame if you're new here, and on this channel I share sewing tutorials ranging from pattern drafting to sewing, cutting, everything around the sewing and fashion niche basically. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much for being here. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing how I made this beautiful reversible waistcoat that you can wear on any side. I mean, why have one when you can have two at the same time? Whatever that means. So without wasting much time, I'll start with the tutorial. So from the edge of the pattern paper, I went inward by 1 inch, which is going to serve as my button allowance. So from there, every other measurement will come from there. So all the points I had already marked, all the lines I've taken on my starting line, which is also the shoulder line, chest line, bust point line, under bust line, waistline, and the hip, the full length line, full length of the blouse. So at this point, I'm just trying to get my armhole curve. So I'm just connecting from my shoulder slope down into the chest line, which has my bust circumference measurement. So now I'll be using a princess dart pattern for this. So I'm going to start by taking my bust span measurement divided by 2, which is 4 inches. I'll take it from the bust point line all the way to the full length of the top. So now on the under bust line, on the dart line on the under bust line, I'll go outward by 0.75 inches, that's half a quarter inch, and then on the waistline I'll do the same thing. So I want it to have a kind of effect on the bust, that's why I'm going out by 0.75 inches. Then on the full length I'll go upward by 1 inch. On the bust line I'm going to go downward by half an inch. So I don't want the bust point to be so pointy. So now I'm going to connect the points together. I'll connect from the waistline with a V to the 1 inch above the full length on both sides. I'll just connect it that way. Then I'm also going to connect from the waistline upward to the under bust line straight because they have the same measurements. So at this point I realized that my markings were not showing properly, so I went ahead to just bolden it a bit with my marker. So now for the princess dart, on that bust point line, I'm going to go upward by half an inch again. I went downward by half an inch. I'll also go upward by half an inch. And now on the armhole line, the midpoint of that armhole line, I'm going to go upward by half an inch and go downward also by half an inch. So you can do more. You can do maybe 0.75 inches, but I'm using half an inch here. And then I'm going to connect it, the upward 0.5 inches on the armhole line. I'll connect it downward to meet the half an inch I went upward on the bust point line. I hope you understand my English. Now on the lower 0.5 inches on the armhole, I'll also connect it to that point, and then I'll use my pen to just blend it in because I don't want it to be too sharp. So I'm also going to connect from the under bust to the bust point with a curved rule. So I'll just connect it this way like you're seeing, and then I'll just reblend it with my pen for everything to just be smooth at least. So after doing that, there'll be shortage if you don't replace the armhole that was taken out. So if you measure from the half an inch upward to the half inch downward, it will give you 1 inch, right? Half inch is 1 inch. So I'll just connect it straight from the second leg of the half inch, right below the midpoint of the armhole. I will just add 1 inch upward straight and just connect it with a straight ruler. And then I'll replace it, or I'll connect it into the armhole to give me my new armhole. If you don't understand what I'm saying, please just look at what I'm doing. So this is my new armhole here. So I made a mistake at this point. So I'm using a marker to just mark out what I have drawn to show you the lines I'm actually working with. So that's just it for princess dart. That's all. So I'm taking my body measurements here at this point. And then I'll replace the dart that was taken as a result of the princess dart crossing the chest line. So there is a little space there. It's not even up to a quarter of an inch. And then I'll be using 2 inches for my sewing allowance. Now on the waistline, I'll take my waist measurement divided by 4. I'll replace the dart. The dart there is about 1.5 inches because I took 0.75 inches on each side. And then after replacing the dart, I'll also add 2 inches for my sewing allowance. Now on the blouse length, I'm going to be taking my hip measurement here. So my hip measurement divided by 4, and then I'll just add 2 inches because there's no dart to replace here. So after doing that, I'll use my curved ruler to just connect the points together like this. So after connecting the sides together, I'll just go ahead and take my side dart measurement. So I'll go down by 1.5 inches from my bust point, and then I'll connect it into the dart on the bust point line. So I'll be closing that out later. So now coming to the front, the neck depth I'm working with for the front is 8 inches. So I'll just use the measurement of the chest line. I'll extend that chest line into the edge of the pattern paper, and I'll connect from the neck width downward into the 8 inches there. You can make it lower or higher, it depends on what you want. So now for the lower part is not also straight. So on the blouse length, I'll go upward by 4 inches. So I'll mark 4 inches on top there, and then I'll go inward by 2.5 inches. So I'll connect this 2.5 inches inward to meet the 4-inch upward, right? Forget my English, just look at what I'm doing. So I'll connect it into the button allowance, just like this. So after doing that, the side of the top as well is not, I don't want it to be straight, so I'm just going to make a little curve. So I'll go upward from that side by 3 inches, and then I'll connect that 3 inches with my curve rule just slightly to meet the 2.5 inch inward point. So just like this. Sorry, I was a bit out of frame here. So this was just how I connected it. And now I'll just go ahead and close my side darts. I'll just use a tape to just hold it down, and then after closing I'll close my side darts before I cut it out, so that if there is any shortage, it can be replaced before I cut it out. So there was a little shortage, so I'll just use my curve rule to add it up and connect it from the chest line just downward into the waistline. The shortage wasn't up to half an inch. So after doing that, I'm just going to go ahead and cut out everything. So just watch how I'm going to cut this out. I'll cut from the midpoint, the lower part, cut it into the side, and then I'll cut it into the armhole. So now getting to the armhole, just watch closely. So when I get to that point, the second addition that I did, right, the extension, I'll just cut it into the body of the outfit. So from here, I'm just going to cut it into the body of the paper, not an outfit yet. I'll cut it into the body, and then since I'm cutting out the darts, I'll just cut one side of the dart line, and then I'm done with the side. And now for the middle part, I'll just cut from the lower part, cut out the dart completely, and then I would continue from the bust point line and cut it upward. So now I'm getting to this point, I'll just follow the little curve there into the shoulder. So that's it, that's just it. Then I'll cut out the shoulders and also cut out the neckline. So this is it for the front piece. Now if you place the points together, you see that everything aligns. That's why a replacement is necessary. So when you take out some shortage for that, do well to always replace it. If not, you're going to have issues when you want to sew. So if I had not replaced that 1 inch, it would have been short by 1 inch on the armhole point. So now for the back piece, the only difference between the front and the back is my neck depth, which is 1 inch. I'm using a neck depth of 1 inch. And then my armhole is about the same thing. And then my shoulder to waist on the back is 15.5 inches. Then the front is 17 inches. So as I took that side dart in the front, everything is just going to lap properly. So I'm taking a regular dart here at this point, and then my body measurements on my bust measurement on my chest line, I'll add 2 inches. My waist measurement, I'll add 2 inches. That's for seam allowance. And then on the full length, I'm going to add 2 inches. So I went down from the waist by 5 inches to get the full length. So I used the full length of 22 inches for this waistcoat. So now I'm just connecting everything together. So for the back as well, the side is not also straight so that it can lap with the front. So I'll go up by 3 inches just like I did for the front. And then I'll just use my curve rule to connect it into that dart point. I'll just connect it slightly slanted. Connect it that way. So after doing that, I'll cut everything out. So that's just it for the back piece. There is no zip allowance also. Yes, there is no zip allowance, there is no button allowance. If you remember, the button allowance is in front, except you want your front to be closed, then you can put a zip allowance. So now if I place the front and the back pieces together side by side, you see that everything aligns, right? So these are the fabrics I'm using. I'm using an Ankara fabric, and I'm using this crepe fabric that is actually very thick. So I've placed my fabric on a fold. So I'm going to start by cutting the back. So I put half-inch allowance all round except for the side, which already has my sewing allowance. And now this is one part of the front. I'm cutting out 2 pieces for everything. And then this is it when I was done with the front and the back for one fabric. So I'll go ahead and cut out the exact same thing on the Ankara fabric. So I was done cutting out all the pieces at this point. I went ahead to also iron out hairstay on the Ankara print just to give it some structure. So I'll go ahead and join the side pieces to the center front pieces. So I'll pin it down first, then I'll go to my machine and just sew it down straight. So I'll do the same thing for the Ankara fabric as well. I was done sewing the pieces at this point, and now I also ironed out the seams. I ironed open all the seams I had joined, just the that seams. So I'm going to join the back piece to the front piece. So I'll place it right sides facing. So I'll place the back piece on the right side of the front piece, and then I'll join the shoulders, and I'll also join the sides together. So I'll just move to my machine now and then join the shoulders and join the sides. So for the crepe fabric, I'm joining the sides all the way to the end, everything. So just watch, you understand what I'm saying better as I proceed. So I'll just join it now by 1 inch. Yes, I'm going to be joining it by 1 inch. I kept 2 inches for the allowance, but I want ease, so I'm just going to be joining by 1 inch. Let the other 1 inch serve as giving me ease, right? So if you want yours tighter, please go ahead. So I'll just join it now, and then I'll join the other side as well. And now for the Ankara fabric, I'll join the shoulders too. So after joining the shoulders, I went ahead to join one side of the Ankara print down, and then for the other side, I'll join to that point I just marked, and then I'll keep a space of about 3 inches and then join all the way down. So I'll join to the point, and then I'll jump, and then I'll continue, right? So I'm just leaving this space. I don't want to tell you what this space is for. So I'll continue all the way to the end. So after doing that, I'll just open it up, and I'm showing you the hole that I have kept. So I realized that the back was a bit too long for me, so I just went ahead to trim off about 2 inches or 2.5 inches off. You can skip this step if you don't want to do this. I also ironed open all the seams I had made. So you need to do this in order to achieve a very clean finish when you're done. So you're going to be closing everything inside, so you need to do all the work before you join the Ankara and the crepe together, at least in my case here. So now I've ironed all the seams open, the shoulder seams, the side seams for both fabrics. I'm going to place the Ankara right side to the crepe. So I'll place the 2 fabrics right sides facing, and then I would lap the points. I would connect the shoulder points together. Everything should be aligned, and then I would pin it down. So I'll pin everything all around. So I'll pin from one shoulder to the other shoulder, to the front neckline, downwards to the lower part, everything. I'll just pin everything. So this is it after I was done pinning everything all around. Please be careful with your pins so you will not be like me that pin pierced. So after pinning it, I'm going to go ahead and sew it by 1/2 inch. I added 1/2 inch when I was cutting on the fabric from the pattern paper. So after sewing everything all around, all the points I pinned down, I'm going to just make notches. This notch is very important to make it flat when you're done. So after making the notches all around all the seams, remember I did not pin the armhole, so we did not sew the armhole. So don't sew your armhole down, please. This is important. So that hole that we kept, I'm still going to tell you. So that's the hole we're going to use, this space. That's where we're going to use to turn everything inside out. So I'm turning it inside out, and this is it. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and sew the shoulders. So to sew the shoulders, this is a little bit technical. Still from that same space that was kept, I'll put my hand through there and then I'll pick the armhole, the joining point, or you can pick any point actually, but I'm just going to pick a piece of the armhole of the two fabrics, and then I'll bring it out. Please just watch closely, and then I'm going to pin it together. So I'll just align the joinings for the front and the back that makes the armhole, right? So I'm just going to bring that point out and align it together, and then I'll pin it down first. This point is necessary. Just pin it down first. So I'm turning it back inside just so that you can see how everything aligns, and then I'll put my hand back in that space, and then we're sewing everything round like this. I'll put my hand back in that space and grab everything. This time I'll bring everything out through that hole, but not the entire top, not the entire outfit. So I'll just bring out enough that I can use to pin, enough that will give me room to be able to sew. English. So I'm just going to bring everything out, and then I'll try to find that point I had pinned at first. So see why it's important to pin. If you don't pin it first, you're going to struggle to find how all the points would align. So I'll find the point I had pinned first, and then I'll continue the pinning. Please buy plenty pins. I'll continue pinning. I'll pin everything all round. So it might be a bit technical when you're doing it. It might feel a bit tight on that armhole point, but it's going to be all right, okay? So I'm just going to pin it all around until I get to that very first pin that I had put. So I'll pin it to the next pin. From one pin, coming back to that pin is a circle. So after doing that and finding the next pin, I'm going to take it to my machine and I'm going to sew it down. So I'll sew from one side, any point at all. I'll just start sewing all round from the first pin I take out to the next pin, from the first to the last pin. So after sewing to an extent, right, it got too tight and it was like I could not move forward. So I just opened up. If you're going to do this and you get to this point, just open up the outfit, and then you realize that the other part is loose. So I'm just going to use this example. It's like there's a straight line and there's a midpoint, right? You're trying to sew from point A to point B, but then there is a midpoint. So you can sew from point A to the middle, and then you come and start from point B to get to the middle. I don't know if that makes sense, but I hope it does. So at this point I was done. I still use that space that was kept to turn everything out. So now for the second armhole, I'm going to do the exact same thing for this. So I'll pass my hand through that space again, getting to the second armhole this time. Then I'll place the crepe and the Ankara right sides facing. I'll bring it out of that hole, make sure everything is aligned, pin it down, pass my hand through the space again, and then I'll grab everything this time. Everything. See, I'm grabbing it. Then I'll bring it out. I'll bring out enough that can give me room to comfortably sew. So I'm not bringing out the entire top. So I'm going to continue pinning all the way around till I get to the first pin that I had already put. So after pinning everything down, I'll go ahead and sew it all around just like I did for the other armhole. When I'm done sewing everything, I'll just go ahead and turn it in through that same hole. So this is it, and then I'll make sure I bring out the points to be very pointy using something sharp. So I also went ahead to give it a very good press. You need to iron it out very properly. You can use hemming gum in some points to make everything lay flat, but I did not use any hemming gum here. So at this point I was done ironing and it came out looking nice. I didn't want the Ankara to be showing on the crepe fabric, right? So you've probably been waiting for this point. How would I close this, right? So I'm going to be sealing it up with a hand needle and thread. So I'll hand sew this down. If you have any hand sewing techniques, please apply it at this point. I basically just tried my best to not let the thread show on the outside. That was why I made the patterned fabric, the one I would sew with my hand, right? So that even if there's some thread pushing out here and there, you'll not really notice because the fabric has more patterns. So I tried my best here and it came out actually looking not bad. So I won't be using buttons for this. I'll be using this instead. These are called press studs. So they have two parts and they have holes, which I'm going to use my hand needle to sew it down on the fabric. So I was done putting it at this point and it came out looking so beautiful. Please, if you've watched up to this point and you found this video helpful in a way, please give it a thumbs up. Also like, share and subscribe to my channel because I have other wonderful tutorials coming up. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video.